Hi, Alan Stratton from Utah Turns. Demonstrations and especially symposiums are a great source of inspiration. They are projects that I need to go home immediately and do, or at least as soon as possible. That is the case with this sphere. I'm emulating one that I saw at the Instant Gallery at the Utah Woodturning Symposium by Vivien Grandoullier. My interpretation of this is following the mountains that surround me in this beautiful area that I live in now. I blasted away the hard and soft, or the soft grain from between the hard grain and a certain portion of the ball. Darker colors on the bottom to represent the solid base of the mountains, and lighter colors on the top to represent the tops and the sky. So this is my interpretation of that. I'm going to take this opportunity also to again show the process for making a perfect sphere. I've shown it before, but I've refined it over the years, so I'll show it again. It involves making an octagon to guide the eye of those of us who are less experienced than the grand masters at the symposiums in forming a sphere. So for now, let's make a perfect sphere and transform it into my strata representation.
As usual, the first step is to mount the wood. This wood is Titan cedar. I'm mounting it between centers so that I can round it over with a gouge. Normally, I have a set of cup centers on wooden faceplates. This time, I'm not going to use my pre-made cup faceplates to demonstrate sphere turning a little differently. The difference is that I will mount my wood into my chuck for the rough ball stage instead of turning it between centers. Just a note, I do think it is easier between centers. For now, I'm roughing and cutting a mounting tenon on one end. Now with the cedar round and mounted to my chuck, I can finish turning a cylinder. The diameter must be smaller than the length of available wood. I can get 5¼ inch diameter from this block. Step 1. Lay out the points of the octagon on the cylinder. On the right end, I'm marking a line near the end of usable wood. To the right of this line is waste. Then measure from this line and mark another line at a distance equal to the diameter, 5¼ in this case. The next critical lines are corners of the octagon that are on the surface of the cylinder. Here I usually use my cheat sheet where I've done the math for a range of spheres. This time, for demonstration purposes, I'm cheating on the cheat sheet and only using the first line, which is for a 1-inch diameter. Then I'm multiplying my diameter by the values for 1 inch. So I need 0.293 times the diameter from each end, which is 1.538 inches for the sphere. Just to check, the distance between these two lines should be the length of the side, or 0.414 times the diameter, which is 2.175 inches for this sphere. Now, step 2. Cut down the ends that are outside the end lines to a diameter equal to the side of my octagon, or 2.175 inches. This establishes a corner. Here's where it would be easier between centers. I have to watch out for my chuck on the left side. Step 3. On the right side, cut from the corner of the octagon on the perimeter to the corner of the tenon. Then do the same on the left side. Now I have an octagon. Don't worry if it isn't exact. All will turn out great in the end. Step 4. Mark the center of each face of the octagon. On the right end, I'm at the tailstock. I'm cutting the tenon down by 1/2. On the left side, I'm fighting my chuck and will have to guess. Better to turn between centers. Now round over from the midline to the next midline to form a sphere. Now I have my rough sphere and can part it off. Before I do, mark a line at the equator of the sphere. I could spend more time here using various techniques or templates to improve the sphere, but on purpose, I'm leaving it very rough and distorted from overcutting the right end. I'm taking just a moment to form the remaining wood in the chuck into a cup shape. It is now the equivalent to my cup faceplates. I have a rubber stopper on my live center. Now rotate the sphere so that the old equator runs from the spindle to the live center. Depending on your rough sphere, find a decent way to seat it on the cup center. Now looking at the top of the rotation of the sphere, I can see a ghost image. I want to scrape or shear scrape until the ghost disappears, but I don't want to remove the equator line. For the sphere, this is still pretty rough, but that's okay. Mark a new equator line. Now rotate the sphere so that the new equator runs from the spindle to the live center. My sphere has improved, but it is still rough. Again, watching the ghost, I want to scrape or shear scrape until the ghost disappears while not removing the equator line if possible. It looks like I undercut one end of my sphere. This will take a little longer and a couple more rotations. Now mark a new equator line. And rotate the sphere again. This time I will not rotate exactly 90 degrees to get a new path. This is because I started quite rough, but I'm getting closer and can leave more and more of the equator line. Ideally, I'd be finished now with the 3 rotations, but I started quite rough. I'll have to do more rotations until I get it right. Mark a new perimeter. Here I go for number 4 rotation. Same process with very light cuts since I'm now getting very close. Now for number 5 rotation. Very, very, very light cuts now. I don't want to go into double overtime. Here I go into double overtime with number 6. It goes to show that no matter how bad the first sphere is, I can improve it until it is perfect. I have it now. The sphere took 3 extra rotations. Even so, I started at a diameter of 5 1/4 inches. I expected to lose at least 1/8 of an inch. My final sphere is 4 7/8 inches, so my rough first cut cost me only 1/8 to 1/4 inch out of the diameter. Sanding is the same process as cutting, except that I have to have 3 rotations for each grit. I don't bother marking an equator line. I'm power sanding with the lathe running fairly fast to minimize oversanding. I need to keep the sander moving. Now I want to do more with my sphere than just being spherical. I'm masking off both sides of a set of grain lines. I want to follow as closely as possible the grain showing on the surface. Since this is wood, these are irregular. I find it easier to use narrow tape for precision, followed by more tape for coverage. I tried frog tape, which has very little tack or stickiness, but it would not stick at all. So I used blue masking tape and it stuck. If it hadn't, I would have used tan masking tape. Each type of tape is more sticky, but may leave more residue on the piece. Since now I will be sandblasting, I'm applying vinyl tape for more resistance. For sandblasting, I'm using a cheap Harbor Freight gun that can shoot baking soda. It works okay for cleaning metal. I'll try it for removing soft wood between grain lines. Although baking soda is non-toxic, I'm wearing a dust mask and face shield. I strained the soda to break up lumps. In the end, I made a lot of soda dust but did not remove very much wood. I would prefer to have removed more, but this is the best I can do with this tool. Time to find a better way. To highlight the grain lines as rock strata, I'm brushing on white acrylic paint, then wiping off as much as I can. After a good drying time, I sealed this area with rattle can lacquer. For the bottom or ground side of the strata, I'm dabbing on alcohol-based dye with a paper towel. First blue, then red, then green. Then sanding the area with 400 grit paper to soften the dye. Finally, I wipe the area with yellow dye. For the top or sky side of the strata, I'm using green and yellow dye with a couple of splotches of red. I want a lighter effect. After giving the dye time to dry, I'm spraying on multiple coats of rattle can lacquer. I'll buff it when the lacquer is dry. Here's my Strata-Sphere. I tried to emulate Vivien Grandoullier from the Instant Gallery. While I like my sphere, I'd like it to have better defined strata and better top and bottom coloring. Vivien's sphere still stands out as a great work. I do hope to have taken the fear out of turning a sphere by showing the octagon method, and that no matter how rough a sphere you start with, following this process results in a perfect sphere. Spend your jig money on more useful tools. That's it for the Strata-Sphere. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe on my website, tell your friends, and send me your comments and questions. Every week I make a new wood turning video. Please wear your full face shield. Goggles are simply not enough protection. Until next week's video, this is Alan Stratton from As Wood Turns.